While I'm here in Wisconsin, this obviously is not the only Midwestern state with a tight Senate race. On the way here, we stopped in Missouri, where I spoke with Democratic incumbent Senator Claire McCaskill about her tough re-election bid against Republican Attorney General Josh Hawley.
Thanks for all you're doing.
Incumbent Democrat Claire McCaskill is in the fight of her political life, and she knows it.
Thanks, guys.
The Real Clear Politics average of recent polls has Republican challenger Josh Hawley up 2. The most recent poll has him up 4.
I think it's surprised, to some extent, some of the national Republicans that this race has stayed as close as it is. Donald Trump won this state by almost 20 points. And I think they thought this was going to be easy, but it's a little more complicated in Missouri. We have a big independent streak. They like to see somebody who doesn't always look through the party lens. I like to remind people that there are hundreds, thousands of people that voted for Mitt Romney and Claire McCaskill. So I've got a really strong record on getting things done across the aisle.
Do you think your vote against Kavanaugh changed the dynamic in this race?
I think the vote against Kavanaugh was going to be tough no matter what. But what I tried to do is what I always tried to do, and that is look at the individual nominee and his record. My decision had nothing to do with the allegations that were made against Judge Kavanaugh, or Justice Kavanaugh now. My problem with him was his opinion that he wrote saying that he thinks foreign money should be allowed into ads that influence our elections, and that there should be no limits on any contributions to campaigns. I'm watching this tsunami of dark money that is drowning our process. I really think this is an issue of our time, that we clean up these campaigns so that people know who's paying for the ads.
You know, your critics say you voted for every one of President Obama's Supreme Court nominees, and then you voted against Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh. So they say, you know, how is that not just moving with your party where it wants to go?
I voted for over 70% of President Trump's judicial nominees. 70%. I voted for more than half of his cabinet members. I vote with him half the time. He signed 38 of my bills into law. That doesn't sound like, to me, somebody who is knee-jerk. Some of my colleagues are knee-jerk against the president. I don't get up every day figuring out how to fight the president. I get up every day trying to figure out how I can fight for Missourians.
To that point, you have this radio ad out now that says, at one point in an exchange, she's not one of these crazy Democrats.
Claire's not afraid to stand up against her own party.
Yep, and Claire's not one of those crazy Democrats.
Who's the crazy Democrat?
The crazy Democrats are people who walk in restaurants and scream in elected officials' faces. The crazy Democrats are, we have a state senator here in Missouri that actually advocated for the assassination of President Trump. That's a crazy Democrat. I don't do those things. I am not somebody who thinks that we should ever be uncivil. I think what most Missourians want is for us to listen to each other, figure out where we can compromise, not scream in each other's faces, not call each other names. So I'm really talking about civility here. I'm talking about being polite, having good manners.
Well, just to be clear, there's not another crazy Democrat in the Senate.
Well, I would say this. I would not call my colleagues crazy, but Elizabeth Warren sure went after me when I advocated tooling back some of the regulations for small banks and credit unions. I certainly disagree with Bernie Sanders on a bunch of stuff. So I'm not afraid.
You know,
I've done those kinds of things which do separate me, I think, from some of the knee-jerk folks that just are against the president no matter what.
You point out about the percentages of voting with the president. 538 has it as 45% roughly. But you do vote with Chuck Schumer 80% of the time, and Elizabeth Warren 67%, and Bernie Sanders 66%.
Well, you know why that is, Brett? Because we aren't getting a chance to vote on much. We have not had full debates in the Senate in a while. You know, these bills, like the tax bill, that was written in Mitch McConnell's office. It wasn't written in the Finance Committee. It's been probably 3 or 4 years since we've had a full debate in the Senate with lots of amendment votes. Now, if you go back and look at my record the entire time, back when we used to vote on things, you'll see a much more accurate picture of how willing I am to listen to both sides and do what I think is right, regardless of party.
What do you think the most important issue for Missourians is right now?
Health care.
By far?
By
like
far.
It's not even close?
Not even close. And I know that because I did over 50 town halls last year. And mostly in very red places where I'm not very popular. And what people are worried about, you know, we need to keep the parts of the ACA that work. And we need to fix the other parts. You know, this thing has been such a political football. And I've been the first to say it wasn't exactly right, and we shouldn't have ever done it on a party line vote. We've got a couple of bipartisan bills that will make it better. If Mitch will let us vote on them, I think we could actually improve the exchanges. I think we could actually pull back some of the regulations. But the notion that Josh Hawley is marching into court trying to score a political point without thinking of the consequences to Missourians about all of their protections going away with no backup. There is no backup, and as I like to tell Missourians, why do you think they asked the court not to decide the case until after November?
Hawley called that attack disingenuous in a debate last week.
She says people want to hold on to things. They don't want to hold on to Obamacare. Healthcare costs up 145% in this state on the exchanges because of Obamacare.
The other issue that's being talked about, obviously because the president is about immigration.
Sure.
So this caravan is getting a lot of attention. It's
Stop
coming.
them at the border.
And what do you do? When they get to the border, what do you do?
I think the president has to use every tool he has at his disposal, and I'm 100% back him up on that. Whether it is turning them back because we are not equipped to handle that many asylum claims into our system. And by the way, that's one of the issues here. We've got to surge and use technology to address when somebody comes across the border and they ask us for asylum. The law says we need to hear them, but we're waiting way too long to hear it. We need to hear them right away. So I do not want our borders overrun, and I support the president's efforts to make sure they're not.
Do you regret supporting Hillary Clinton in 2016?
You know, that's a hard question. You know, obviously my state disagreed with me on that. I thought she was certainly had the breadth and depth of experience that qualified her. But I'd rather look forward and not backward. And my only request of the president is that I think we should not make the press the enemy, and I think the truth matters. We've got plenty of differences, Josh Hawley and I, and we should be campaigning on those.
An undercover video from Project Veritas where the senator said she would be for toughening gun control laws more than she talks about publicly got some attention in the race.
High capacity mags.
I've voted for most of those things before.
For a ban?
Oh, yeah.
Great,
Yeah.
great.
Video that came out and somebody asked you questions about you know, what you would do.
Yeah.
What's your reaction to that?
Well, I mean, people in Missouri know where I stand on this. I'm for the Second Amendment and also gun safety. I mean, I voted to ban assault weapons. This is not a secret. The thing about those films that bothered me was not what was on them, because I mean, you don't do 52 town halls and let anybody come in the door and think you're hiding anything. It was that they had embedded themselves in our offices for weeks on end, and that guy had accessed our computers. He wasn't in our computers to help me. So there was fraud, and I think that's a new normal that we've got to do something about.
There's no voter out there that has to worry about what you say to us as being different than what your policy on guns is going to be.
That's when it comes in handy that I've got this very clear record. And, you know, my mouth gets me in trouble with some regularity. I am not afraid to tell people where I stand. And Missourians know that. I mean, I have, you know, the NRA's come after me in every single election. This isn't like some state secret. That I believe we should have universal background checks, and I believe we should ban bump stocks, and I believe if you've been on a terrorist list, we probably shouldn't be getting weapons at a gun show. This is stuff I've been very clear about, and you know, the NRA is running ads against me, so I don't think that how I feel about gun safety is a secret from Missourians.
Last thing, you got the bus right here. Is this is this the closing days? You spend a lot of time on this?
Oh, I spent a lot of time on it. You know, not just now, but for months on end. Can I tell you a secret?
Yeah.
I'm a little tired of the bus. I love the people I get to meet.
Yeah.
You know, hugging strangers is my favorite part of the campaign. But it is. I've spent a lot of hours on the bus this year.
Well, I think that's our signal to wrap up. So
Okay. All right. Thanks, Brett.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.